How are you?
How are you doing?
Good. So I'm Lisa Salas. I'm the CEO of College Track and on the Leadership Council. Our first question for you, which you'll have 2 minutes to answer, is what makes you the most qualified leader to serve Oakland students in your district school board seat? And what specific areas will you bring expertise to the board?
Okay. First, I just want to start out and say, good morning. All right, let's wake up, guys. So, yeah. And I just want to thank everybody for coming here, parents, community, stakeholders, on very early Saturday morning. Giving your time for education and for our kids is really important because it's the future of Oakland. And so, what I feel makes me the most qualified is, my story. I am, Oakland native. I was born in Kaiser on MacArthur. My mom came here, she was 17. She graduated from Pine Bluff, Arkansas. She left the high school, came here on a Greyhound bus. She graduated from Laney College, and then she got a job at the phone company and worked there for 32 years. Good union job, was able to take care of me. My dad, who was a war veteran, he helped Vietnam veterans come back and find jobs. My mom and dad's story is a story that should be told over and over and over again, but sadly it's not. I went to schools here in Oakland. I got to experience the rich black culture. They didn't call it ethnic studies back then. They just called it what it was, education. I went to SF State. I got a degree in activism, really. I was able to create a recruitment retention center to help middle and high school students attain and have access to college. As a community college board member, I was a vice president. I also chaired our budget committee, and I made sure that we invested in our student services, our community-based campuses, and overall, I made sure that we invested in our students through Gateway to College program, bringing that to City College. Here in Oakland, I work with ACE, I work with the Sierra Club, and I work in many other community-based organizations. And as a social worker, I work to help find our formerly incarcerated. I help them find jobs so they can also have a good second chance. Thank you so much.
Our next question is from Lacey.
Hi, good morning. My name is Lacey Raffel. I'm the CEO of Moving Forward Education and one of the Veteran Commissioners. My question today, which we'll have 4 minutes to explore, is what is your assessment of the district's current priorities? And how does this align with your personal top 3 priorities for the district? Can you explain why those 3 personal priorities are important?
So I guess I'll start off with, my priorities. My first priority is, making sure that we support our teachers. In order to have great students, we need to have teachers that feel supported, that feel loved, and feel wanted in Oakland Unified School District. We need to help with mentors, find retired teachers, help mentor our new students, our new teachers, so that we can improve our teacher retention rate. We know that improving our teacher retention rates helps improve student performance. I want to help with professional development opportunities for our teachers as well. My next priority is having a strong vocational education and having real investments in vocational education. This is especially for our students who choose not to go to college right after high school. I have been in workforce for 8 years. I've seen students who have either dropped out of Oakland Unified or had difficulties graduating. They'll go to a workforce development program, graduate, and experience success in having a living wage job and able to stay here in Oakland. I believe in vocational education. As a trustee at the community college level, I help support our over 240 career and technical education programs. Programs like Cypress Mandela, the Bread Project, they connect our students with real vocational options. Now I want to get into, something that's a passion of mine, which is universal preschool. I believe that nobody, no matter what your income level is, should be denied access to quality preschool for 3 and 4-year-olds. We know that the greatest indicator of student success, beyond all the rhetoric, beyond all the politics, is a student that had a great educational-related preschool. I'm going to push to make sure that we have real investments in our preschool. Our current budget does not make any additional investments in our early childhood education. As a school board member, I'm going to make sure that we have that investment and eventually send something to the voters to help support a fully fledged universal preschool for Oakland Unified School District. Now I want to end with my priorities by talking about our budget process. Our budget process is deeply flawed. There's very little sunshine, there's very little process, and most of our budgets is made without public input, parent input, community input, or even staff and educators input. The fact is, we've been making disinvestments in our budget. We don't add any more money, even though our budget has gone up to now $790 million. We've made no real investments in our vocational education. We've made no additional investments in our special education. We've actually cut monies from school sites. Parker Elementary, Rise, MLK, or in West Oakland. Per pupil spending there decreased. Castlemont, McClymonds, those are schools, Castlemont in East Oakland, McClymonds in West Oakland. We have decreased per pupil spending on those school sites. So in the flatlands of the East Oakland and in West Oakland, we've decreased our investment in our students. I want to make sure when I'm on the board that we actually invest in the students who need it the most. And I might add that each of these schools added enrollment. They added students. So to see that we've added students and added enrollment, but we've decreased our investment in our students really strikes me to my very core. And as a school board member, I'm going to fight to make sure we make real investments that help students succeed and that we actually invest directly in our classrooms and our students. Thank you.
Can I just have one clarifying question on that?
Hey, let me get some water first.
Sure.
I'm not stalling either. I'm just like thirsty. I'm having my Marco Rubio moment right now. So,
What were the fiscal years you had for the decrease?
the budget that we just passed in June, in June, that if you look at the site, the school site numbers per pupil spending, Parker, Rise, MLK, Castlemont, McClymonds, and Bret Harte Middle, they saw a decrease in per pupil spending.
Last year and this year?
Yes. So they show that in the budget. So many of our board members might not know that because the board only received their budget they received their budget 9 days before they had a vote. We should have actually had a vote and had a process months beforehand. So I'm going to change that process and have a more open and transparent process for our budget so everybody knows what we're investing in. Thank you.
Okay. Our next question is from effective teaching, Ruth and Kyle.
Hi, my name is Ruth Jones. I teach at Edinburgh Middle School, and I'm one of the teacher policy fellows at GO.
I'm Kyle Svingen. I teach at Oakland International High School, and I'm also a teacher policy fellow. We believe that effective teaching matters. We fought for the teacher growth and development system, a comprehensive teacher support system to help educators improve their practice. The GO Teacher Policy Fellows advocate for early career supports for new teachers and career pathways for more experienced teachers. During the last school board elections and the OUSD-OEA negotiations last year, we advocated that increasing teacher compensation has to be among our top priorities.
But there is still much to do in this area. Year after year, about 20% of OUSD teachers are in their first or second year of teaching, which is double the rate of most neighboring districts. We can't afford that level of turnover, especially in the face of a dire teacher shortage. We need better to support our educators so they can better serve our students. You will have 4 minutes to answer the following question. In addition to increased pay, which every candidate supports, what are the best ways to increase student access to effective teaching? What will you specifically do as a board member to make effective teaching a true priority?
And I want to thank you for that question. So as I mentioned before, I believe in teacher mentorship. Many teachers that I talk with on the ground state that, while teacher pay is very important, especially living here in Oakland, mentorship is also just as important, making sure that they're supported. And so, if elected, I want to make sure that we have a mentorship program where we connect maybe our retiring or more experienced teachers with our new teachers. Everybody remembers when they were new in a school or new in high school or middle school, elementary, you were teamed up with a student who had been there already. They walked you around and maybe spent like a week with you. Now, I want something a lot deeper than just, a week hanging out with a new teacher, but we should make real deep investments in mentorship programs, for our young and early and starting out teachers. I also want to make investments in professional development. Some teachers, also want to grow within Oakland Unified School District, and I think that should be supported. Our best principals are our teachers. And so I want to make sure that those investments happen in terms of professional development and opportunities for that professional development. Now, I also want to get into another part, and that's the decision-making process. I've talked to many teachers who feel their morale is down because they're not involved in the decision-making process here in Oakland Unified School District. Many policies, you talk about our special education inclusion policy, you talk about the budget, you talk about many other areas. Our teachers are not brought in on the front end when we're developing the policies. They're brought in and told what the policies are. We need teachers involved in every aspect, in the initial aspect of our policies. That makes teachers feel included. That's what real inclusiveness is. So I want to build in engagement with our educators, also with our parents and community, so that when we have policies and initiatives that we're doing inside Oakland Unified School District, everyone feels invested. I think everyone, 95% of the objectives that we're trying to get to, we agree with. By excluding educators from the decision-making process, we're actually sowing the seeds of division within our own school system and within our own district. So now that we know that we agree on a lot of things, let's bring everybody into the same process so that we're speaking the same language and that all of our experiences are reflected in the policies and the implementation of those policies as well. So that's how I would improve, teacher retention and teacher morale and make sure that our teachers feel supported too. Thank you so much for those questions. I appreciate it.
Our next question is from Annette.
Good morning, my name is Annette Miller. I'm a community organizer in West Oakland. The power of community is one of Go's core values. It is a foundation of which long-lasting change is built. We believe that school communities should hold decision-making authorities over their staff, program, and budget. When OUSD granted school communities more of these freedoms in the mid-2000s, we saw tremendous persistence, academic, and cultural improvement. You would have 4 minutes to answer these questions, please. I believe that schools should have a decision-making authority over their operation. I believe that the central office should manage most decisions in which the district, inside the district. Which of these statements best describe your opinion of the district schools government? What do you see as the implication for schools, families, and teachers? Please be specific in addressing the areas of staff, programming, and budget in your response.
And thank you, Annette. And Annette is an amazing West Oakland organizer. And I just want to, first of all say, I love her advocacy and, especially, you might not know she worked on the foreclosure crisis, a few years back. So thank you so much, Annette, for that question. I look at it and I first want to start with, our decision-making processes first. They need to be rooted in an inclusiveness, that speaks, from input from our parents, from our educators, from our staff, and from our communities first. I do believe that schools should have decision-making, authority over their operations, but I also look at our budget process, and I'm like, I believe deeply in equity. When I served as a member on the community college board, I reflected those values. I look at our current budget and the disinvestment in some of our school sites, and I don't want to set our school sites up to fail. When you disinvest in per pupil spending, you're setting our school sites up to fail. When you take $4.6 million out of the English language learners budget, you're setting our school sites that have a heavily Latino and English language population, you're setting them up to fail. You're not giving them the supports. We've cut money from school site support. That's in our budget. That's in the budget narrative. We've cut money in our school site support. Almost 20 million, I believe. So I do believe in decision making, and I do believe in autonomy and authority, but I also want to make sure that I give our parents the capacity to have decision making processes, that I give our school leaders and our principals the capacity and the budget to lead their schools. And I want to make sure that our students are believed and invested in. If you are a parent and a student that goes to Castlemont and McClymonds, my dad always told me, don't tell me what your values are. Show me your budget and I'll tell you what your values are. When we see that the only the only school sites that were lost student pupil spending were in the flatlands of East Oakland and West Oakland, what does that say? It says that those students' education doesn't matter. And so I strongly agree with the statement that we should make sure that our school sites have authority, but I also agree that I want to give them the tools to have that authority. So as a person who has chaired a $300 million budget for our community colleges, I have the tools and I have the experience needed to guide us through that process. The role of our central office is to ensure equity. Plain and simple. I don't want to get into too many specifics. It's to ensure equity. But there's not a lot of equity in disinvesting in our students in West Oakland and the flatlands of East Oakland. There's not a lot of equity there. So I want to make sure we have more decision making for our school sites, but I also want to hold our central office accountable for outcomes. I also, with my last minute, I want to address a civil grand jury. We know that 24 of our 37 charter schools are failing based on state standards. I don't blame our educators. I don't blame our schools. I think I want to also be able, as a board member, to help improve that. We have over 12,000 students in charter schools, and I respect that decision. But I also want to make sure that we have a role as board members, and the central office has a role to ensure equity, that those 12,000 students and the 24 schools that have failed California testing standards based on the civil grand jury, that they have the tools and the attention needed to improve themselves. I don't want to sentence a student to a school that's failing. So yes, I respect autonomy, but I also want to make sure our central office ensures equity as well too. Thank you so much for that question, Annette. I appreciate it.
Thank you.